The first time I heard about the Phantom ship, I thought it was just another grunt's fairy tale. Something to keep morale up when the rations were moldy and the air smelled like recycled piss. The humans are building something, they'd say. Something that doesn't show up on sensors, moves faster than anything we've seen, hits harder than a planet killer. Bullshit. That was my first thought. I'd spent years in the Dominion fleet, and humans were barely a whisper after the culling wars. We'd glassed most of Earth's surface. The cities were rubble. The colonies were either wiped out or surrendered. What's left of their species scattered across mining worlds or slums, scraping for oxygen and protein paste. They were beaten. Done. A ghost species. That's what we were told. Then came Vega 9. It was supposed to be another easy sweep. The Rekari Confederacy had sent 20 ships, scouts, corvettes, a few war cruisers, to clean out a suspected rebel outpost. Light resistance, maybe a few pirates holed up. Standard stuff, nothing serious. But none of them came back. No debris, no distress call, not a single fragment. Just gone. The command tried to write it off as spatial anomalies or black hole interference. You know, the usual cosmic excuses. But the whispers started spreading faster than they could control. A shadow ship. No engine signature. Something with human heat patterns. One tech claimed he picked up old Earth comms static right before the signal vanished. An Earth song, they said. Rock music. Some laughed. I didn't. Not after what happened at the Drakenbelt. I was stationed on the Varkesh, one of the Dominion's heavier cruisers. We were running escort on a convoy, 3 supply freighters and a science vessel heading toward the front lines. All routine, all boring, until the alarms started screaming. Unidentified object incoming, no IFF, speed, impossible. At first we thought it was a glitch. No known ship moved like that. The object appeared, then disappeared, across 3 different sectors in less than 12 seconds. Then it was right there. Outside our viewing pane, just floating. It didn't look like anything we knew. Angular, black, jagged like it had been welded in hell. The hull was scarred and scorched like it had survived a dozen battles, and won them all. No lights, no insignia, just silence, until it opened fire. There was no warning, no communications, no demand for surrender. It tore through our escort fighters like they were paper. Precision strikes, not random, not wild. Each shot targeted an engine core, a reactor, or a pilot's pod. Surgical, cruel, efficient. We fired everything we had. Plasma lances, rail bursts, fusion rounds. Nothing touched it. The few impacts that did connect glanced off as if the thing had adaptive shielding we'd never seen before. Some of our top techs think it was armor made from repurposed alien biometal, stolen from ancient wrecks or forbidden labs. Hell, some say it was alive. I watched through the viewport as our sister ship, Carithex, split in 2. One half drifted, flames venting into the void. The other ignited like a sunburst when the reactor gave out. And then it was on us. That was the first time I saw its emblem, just before we lost half our weapons array. It was burned into the side of the black hull, barely visible through the flicker of explosions and shadows. A human skull. Behind it, the outline of Earth. I froze. It wasn't supposed to exist. Humanity wasn't supposed to have ships, not anymore. But this one was real, and it was killing everything in sight. We tried to run. Our captain, old cold-blooded Jareem, didn't hesitate. Evasive maneuvers, full burn, signal all ships to retreat. But the words were a waste of breath. The Phantom didn't chase us like a beast in heat. It didn't need to. It moved with confidence, cruel, practiced confidence. It knew exactly where we were going before we even moved. The Varkesh lurched as our thrusters fired at full tilt, the metal groaning from the sudden shift. Consoles flickered, lights dimmed, typical of Dominion ships when pushed to max. We weren't built for speed. We were built for dominance. Power. But against this thing, we were dragging chains. "Starboard hit!" one of the bridge officers yelled. Sparks shot out from his panel. "Decks 12 through 14 vented." I was strapped in, but even from the command chair, I could feel it. The ship wasn't just taking damage. It was being dissected, picked apart. No random targeting, no brute force. Whoever was flying that ship had studied our design. They knew exactly where to hit and when. And they were playing with us. The Phantom didn't need to destroy us fast. It was toying with us, bleeding us slow. I saw another corvette try to flank it from the left, a desperation move. 1 second it was there, the next, gone, like it never existed. "Where the hell did it go?" someone shouted. "I've got nothing on scopes," replied another. Then the lights flickered again. And it was inside our formation, like it had blinked through space. 1 instant out there, the next inside our gut. We'd never seen that before. Dominion tech wasn't even close. Instant positional transfer, without tearing space-time apart? That was fantasy. Or used to be. I gripped the edge of my chair, knuckles white. "Fire everything. I don't care if it's aimed, just fire." It didn't matter. We launched a barrage, a desperate vomit of firepower, plasma torpedoes, ion shredders, solar flares, half missed, half fizzled on contact. One hit the side and cracked off harmlessly, and the Phantom responded with a single beam. Just one. It sliced across the hull like a razor through flesh. Clean, silent. Until the explosions started. One after the other, containment ruptures tore through the belly of the Varkesh. Crew members were sucked into the void before they even knew what hit them. Bodies froze mid-scream, fire ignited, then vanished into nothing as oxygen hissed out through the cracks. And then, silence. Not outside, inside, everything powered down. The lights died, the hum of engines faded, emergency backups kicked in, flickering red light across the bridge. We were adrift, floating like corpses in a coffin. "Main power's out," someone said quietly. I didn't reply. I couldn't. My breath caught in my throat because something else happened. Something worse. It hailed us. A comm line opened without permission, not through our system. It didn't crackle or beep. It just was. Like a voice crawling straight into my skull. A man's voice. Human. Rough, low, tired, but not old. Not cold. Not angry. Worse. It was calm. "You tried to erase us," it said. "You burned our cities, buried our children under the dust of our ancestors. You called us primitive, weak, broken." He paused. "You should have finished the job." No name, no demands, just that. Then the comm cut, and the Phantom vanished again, not warped, not cloaked, gone. We were left drifting in a field of our own dead. The rest of the convoy, the freighters, the science crew, they were gone too. No wreckage, no signal, just empty space. Our rescue came 2 cycles later. Another patrol fleet picked up our emergency beacon. They didn't believe us. Said we were hallucinating. Said we were hit by rebels using stolen Dominion gear. I didn't argue. I just kept thinking about the voice. That calm voice. It wasn't speaking to us. Not really. It was warning us. 3 weeks later, I was back on Galactic Prime, recovering. Physically, I was fine. Bruises, some cracked ribs, slight radiation poisoning from the breach. Mentally? That was another thing. They had me in a debrief room for hours. Some Psi officer asking the same questions over and over, sketching the ship, repeating the voice, recounting the way it moved. But they didn't believe me. Not really. They chalked it up to stress trauma and heat hallucination, even though 2 other survivors said the same damn thing. They filed it under unconfirmed hostile contact, species unknown. But I knew better. A week after that, someone paid me a visit. Not a Dominion official, not even military. He came in without a file, without clearance, just walked into my holding quarters like he owned the place. Tall, sharp eyes, wore civilian clothes, spoke Dominion standard, but his accent was wrong. Clipped, earthborn, human. He didn't sit, didn't shake my hand, just looked me in the eyes like he was digging through my skull. "You saw it," I nodded. "You heard him speak." I nodded again. He paused, then leaned in slightly. "You want to know the truth?" I said nothing, but my silence must have been enough. They call it the Exile, the first and last true warship humanity ever built after the culling. 1 ship, no fleet, just 1. I frowned. "That's not possible. Earth Dash is dead. Yeah, I know," he cut in. "But not everyone stayed buried. Some went dark, off-grid, deep colonies, digging through old tech, found things, built things. The Exile wasn't born in a lab. It was forged in grief, powered by tech we weren't supposed to touch." "Like what?" I asked. He smiled faintly. "You don't want to know." I sat forward. "Who flies it?" "The man who watched his daughter burn alive when your fleet bombed Jakarta. The man who buried his wife under a crater in New Berlin. The man who lost everything and then decided to give the galaxy something to fear again. Is he military? Number worse. Worse than military." The man leaned closer. "He's a father with nothing left to lose." "Then he left?" "Just like that. Didn't give a name. No rank, no trace, gone. That was 2 months ago. Now I sit here, on a new ship. The Tarkal. Another Dominion vessel, bigger, meaner, fully armed and prepped with AI tracking and enhanced scanners. We're patrolling near the border systems again. And guess what? Another fleet's gone dark. No signals, no survivors, just silence. They told us it was probably pirates, or rebels, or a tech fault. But I know better. He's still out there. The Exile. And this time he's not hiding. I wasn't supposed to be on the Tarkal. After the Varkesh, I filed for reassignment to a deep space relay post. Quiet, far from the front. Somewhere I could rot in peace without another damn alarm in my ear. But Command had other plans. They said I was valuable. They said I had first-hand experience with hostile unknowns. What they meant was, I was bait. The Tarkal wasn't just any cruiser. It was a hunter ship, a new class, top-tier Dominion engineering, fast, stealth-adapted, loaded with experimental tech designed to counter whatever had hit us out there. And I was their ace, their human-spotting canary, only no one said it out loud. The crew didn't trust me. They didn't say it to my face, but I could feel it. Whispers behind my back. Eyes on me in the mess hall. Some of them had lost friends in the Vega and Draken incidents, and I was the crazy survivor. The one who'd seen the ghost ship. They didn't say it, but they were thinking. Maybe he imagined it. Maybe he brought it with him. I didn't blame them. I barely trusted myself. But I knew one thing. The Exile was real, and it was still out there. 3 days into our patrol run, we picked up a distress signal. Garbled, weak, static heavy, but human. Real human. Dominion protocol said we ignore it unless confirmed military. The commander, a cold bastard named Revik, wanted to write it off. Likely rebel bait, he muttered, or leftover code bouncing from dead satellites. But something about it nagged at me. I requested a direct scan of the sector. The techs grumbled, but the commander allowed it. I think he wanted to see me proven wrong in front of the bridge crew. The scan returned one signal. Faint, low power, surface level, from a Class 3 dead world. No colonies, no settlements. But the signal repeated again, this time clearer. Just 4 words. They're coming. Help us! Revik scoffed. Scam! Send a drone! But I saw it then, the code signature buried inside the transmission. Ancient, almost forgotten. Terran encryption, old Earth military grade. Not rebel, not pirate, human. I turned to Revik. You need to let me go down there. He laughed. With what, a prayer and a shovel? I didn't smile. You send a drone, it'll vanish. That's what the Phantom does. It lets you think you're watching, then it guts you when you blink. Revik narrowed his eyes. So what do you think is down there? I didn't answer. Truth was, I had no idea. They let me go. Me, 2 grunts, and a junior tech. Drop shuttle, limited arms, no backup. Our boots hit dirt 30 minutes later. The planet, if you could call it that, was nothing but ash and bone. Black rock, frozen winds, no vegetation, no life, a graveyard world. And yet there was the signal, a faint hum coming from beneath the surface. The tech traced it to an old bunker, half buried in collapsed rubble. Not Dominion, not alien, something older. We pried the doors open. It wasn't easy. Inside, we found what no one expected. People. Real people. About 20 of them, dirty, thin, wrapped in old fabric and armor scraps. Human eyes, some hard, some hollow. A few flinched when they saw our Dominion uniforms. One stood up. A woman. Late 40s, maybe. Short hair. Scar running down her cheek. She didn't salute. Didn't smile. Too late, she said. I stepped forward. What do you mean? She looked past me, toward the sky. He already knows you're here. Who? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The exile. We barely had time to react. The first blast hit the atmosphere with a shockwave so loud it shattered half the bunker's ceiling. The Tarkal sent a burst transmission. Unidentified hostile inbound. Weapons hot. Defensive posture. Request immediate evac. But there was no evac. The sky turned red. The second shockwave knocked our shuttle clean off the landing ridge. I watched it tumble, engines sputtering, before exploding against the cliffside. We were stranded. The bunker civilians ran deeper underground. The 2 grunts readied their weapons, wide-eyed. The tech was already sobbing. And then I heard the sound I feared most. That voice. Broadcasting again, not just in my head, but everywhere. Every comm device, every visor, every data pad. You brought more ships, the voice said. Calm, flat, still human. You keep sending more hunters, more mouths full of teeth. A pause. I warned you once. And then the sky opened. I ran outside. There it was, the exile. Not cloaked, not hiding. It hovered above us like a goddamn myth. Pitch black. Angular, bigger than I remembered. Its engines didn't hum. They throbbed like a pulse. The air shimmered around it. The sky bent where it moved. And then it fired. A beam of pure blue light sliced across the valley. It didn't explode. It evaporated the cliff face. Vapor. Gone. I hit the ground as debris and dust rained down. The heat was unreal. My armor lit up with radiation warnings. The 2 soldiers beside me didn't get up. Dead. Burned to the bone before they could scream. I heard the tech running, then stopped running. A thud. No cry. I looked. Just blood, no body. That's when I saw him. Not a drone, not a projection. A human figure walking down from the belly of the ship. No armor, no escorts, just a long, dark coat flapping in the heat. I raised my weapon. My hands shook. He didn't flinch. When he got close enough, I saw his face. Rough, tired, deep lines across his brow, eyes sunken, beard gray. But he wasn't old. He was exhausted, not from battle, from living. I didn't shoot. Neither did he. We stood there in silence, until he said, "Do you know what it feels like to lose a world?" I didn't answer. He looked past me, toward the wreckage of the shuttle, then back to the blackened sky. "I buried my wife under glass," he said. "I watched my son burn alive in an escape pod that never launched. They told me help was coming. It never did." His voice didn't shake. It didn't rise. It just was. "I begged them to save Jakarta," he said. "They told me it wasn't strategic enough, that they had to cut losses. Accept civilian casualties." A pause. "And now you think you can erase the debt with another patrol ship?" He looked at me. "You're not the enemy," he said, "but you're flying with them." I lowered my weapon. "Why me?" I asked. "Why let me live? You killed everyone on the Varkash but me." He tilted his head slightly. "Because you listened, even when they told you not to." I swallowed hard. He turned to walk away. "I don't want war," he said, "but I won't let them forget." The exile's ramp hissed open. He paused at the top. "Tell your Dominion this. I'm not their ghost. I'm their mirror." Then he was gone. The ship lifted, silent as death, and vanished into the clouds. They say war changes a man. That's a lie. Survival changes you. War just shows you what was already inside. After I got pulled out of that crater, I wasn't the same. No one said it, but I saw it in their eyes. I was tainted. Not a soldier anymore. More like a witness. A man who stood face to face with the ghost that kept gutting their fleets and lived to tell about it. That made people nervous. I was quarantined for a week, isolated in a cold, concrete room, buried under a classified military research center on Kenzar 4. No visitors. No real interrogations. Just repeat psyche evaluations, scans, DNA testing. They thought maybe the exile had infected me with something. Some biovirus, a tracking agent, a kill switch. But deep down, I knew the truth. They were afraid I'd start telling people what he said, what he stood for, what we did. They wanted the myth to die quietly. Except it didn't. Because the exile didn't let it. The attacks increased. 1 week after Kenzar, the Dominion lost 3 cruisers over Sector 9. No warning, no survivors, just a floating message beacon broadcasting on all frequencies. Debt unpaid, memory preserved. Then came the strike at Jaskra Outpost, one of our primary deep space fueling stations. Defended by a carrier, a half-dozen destroyers, and 2 orbital turrets. Everything went dark in under 8 minutes. The exile didn't just kill soldiers. He killed hope. He made the Dominion bleed in places they thought untouchable. And every time, he left a message. Sometimes carved into a ship's hull, sometimes embedded in the black box transmissions, sometimes hacked into our own comm systems. "You burned Earth. We remember." It worked. Not just physically, but psychologically. The higher-ups started cracking. Some wanted to double the fleet presence on the rim. Others demanded cybergenetic recon of all known human diaspora zones. One general suggested a scorched world protocol. Wipe out any surviving Earth colonies, legal or not. But fear breeds mistakes. And fear was all they had now. They eventually brought me in front of the Central High Command. 5 warlords sitting around a circular table made of polished obsidian. Real stone, not synthetic, because appearances mattered more than results in this place. They didn't ask me questions. They tested me. One said, "You sympathize with him." Another, "You failed to engage." The third, "You had a clear shot and didn't take it." I kept my voice level. He didn't come to kill civilians. He came to send a message. You've received it loud and clear. The head of the panel, an ancient reptilian named Velch, leaned forward. "Would you help us kill him?" I didn't answer at first. Not because I didn't know, but because I wanted to see if they understood the real question. I stared him in the eye. Would it even matter if I did? The silence in that room was louder than a gunshot, because they all knew the answer. You don't kill something like the exile. You survive him if you're lucky. They didn't execute me, but they did something worse. They made me a symbol, promoted me, gave me command of the Erasure, a newly built warship outfitted with everything the Dominion had to throw at its nightmare. They called it the Ghost Breaker. Heavy cannons, tri-phase shields, quantum prediction AI, reverse-engineered stealth tech. And one more thing, a human crew. Not full, but partial. Recruited from colonies, backwater systems, prisoners of war, token loyalty humans. I knew the type, people the Dominion could use as propaganda. Look, we're not the bad guys. We employ humans too. I saw through it instantly. But I took the chair. Why? Because I knew something they didn't. If the exile ever spoke again, it would be to me. And I needed to be in a place where I could listen. Our first mission wasn't a battle. It was bait. We were ordered to patrol the middle sector. Quiet space, but strategically significant. Just close enough to known exile hit zones to draw attention, but far enough that command could disavow if things went sideways. I was given freedom to choose our pattern, modify routes, even engage with non-Dominion entities as needed. But the truth? I knew he'd come. He always came when the Dominion made a move this bold. We didn't see him at first. No warp ripple, no energy surge, no scanner alert, just a sound. Through the static, a whisper, then the song, an old Earth song, guitar riffs, gritty vocals, rage against the machine. That was my guess. I'd heard bootlegs in the underground colonies. Angry, fast, violent. It blared through every system we had. Internal comms, weapon feeds, nav logs, and then silence, followed by his voice. "You took my planet," he said. "You built a ship to replace it. I'm here to break it." He appeared off the bow, not charging, not hiding, just there. The exile, floating like judgment itself. The Erasure locked weapons. The crew tensed. Some of them were new. Some wanted vengeance. Some were just scared. I made a call that would have gotten me court-martialed 2 years ago. "Do not fire unless I say." My second-in-command, a rigid Dominion loyalist named Arvin, snapped. "You're compromising protocol. That ship has attacked multiple fleets." I cut him off. I said hold. The exile hovered, unmoving. Lights dimmed across its hull, then lit up in patterns. Pulses. Not just for show. A code. Old Terran Morse. I had to dig into the archives just to be sure. But once I translated it, my breath caught in my throat. It said, "Captain, meet me, alone, no weapons. Shuttle bay, 1 hour." Arvin lost his mind. "This is a trap, a psyop. You're not seriously—" I stood. "Prep my shuttle." He lunged, tried to block me. "If you go in there, you won't come back." I looked him dead in the eye. I survived him once. Then I left. Shuttle ride was dead silent. I flew solo. No escorts, no communications, no tracking. I didn't care. If he wanted me dead, he'd had 1,000 chances. This wasn't about death. This was about truth. When the docking latch clamped and the exile's airlock hissed open, I stepped inside. Dark corridors, quiet hums, everything black metal in strange angles, like it had been stitched together from wreckage and madness. And at the end of the corridor, him. Same coat, same eyes. But this time, there was something else. Not hate, not anger, weariness. He nodded. You came. I didn't bother with greetings. Why me? He looked past me, toward the shuttle. Because you still see both sides, the soldier and the man. You're not just killing soldiers, I said quietly. You're killing hope. What happens when there's no one left to remember Earth? He walked past me, hand trailing along the hull wall like he was touching a memory. That's the point, he said. When they forget the cost, they'll do it again. To someone else. I exhaled. So you burn the galaxy to light the graves? He turned sharply. Number I make them remember what they buried. And who's still digging? We talked for an hour. I won't write all of it here. Some of it's still too raw. Some of it is too dangerous. But I'll tell you this. He didn't want revenge. He wanted memory. He wanted to remind the galaxy what humanity once was, flawed, desperate, relentless. He wanted every Dominion officer who'd ever pressed a planetary fire button to sleep, knowing someone might come knocking. Not for justice, not for war, but for balance. He let me leave. No threats, no deals. Just one final message, burned into my shuttle's rear hull by some form of micro-laser tech. This isn't war, it's the reckoning. I read it every time I step out of my ship, because I know one day I'll see him again. And next time, it won't be a conversation. They called it the Purge of the Shadows, a name too clean for what it really was. The Dominion couldn't catch the exile, but they could make an example of everyone who looked like him. Anyone with Earth ancestry, any colony that had refused to fully assimilate, any soldier who hesitated when given the order to shoot. They started with the slums on Kelviar 3, then the asteroid communes out near the Scar Line, then the rehabilitation rings where some of our refugees were kept on permanent labor duty. They didn't bomb them. That would have made martyrs. No, they did it quietly. Covert squads, black ships, no insignia. One night you were home, eating synthetic noodles and trying not to cough blood in the recycled air. The next night you were gone. Airlock opened, files erased, vanished, and always, always, there was the whisper that it was because of him. The exile had started a war he never declared, and the Dominion made sure the innocent paid for every second of it. Back on the Erasure, things started falling apart. We weren't just a weapon anymore. We were a symbol. The propaganda vid said we were the ship that saw the ghost, a living shield between the Dominion and the terrorist scourge. They had me front and center in every broadcast, clean armor, stiff posture, dead eyes. But behind the cameras, it was chaos. The crew was splitting. Half wanted to find the exile and kill him. They blamed him for the deaths, for the fear, for the carnage spreading across the outer systems. The other half? Quiet. Withdrawn. Watching the news feeds and wondering if maybe, just maybe, the exile wasn't wrong. That maybe the galaxy needed to remember Earth. That maybe the Dominion had gone too far. And right in the middle of it? Me. I noticed it first in the mess hall. The two human-born gunners, Ryle and Bant, stopped sitting with the other enlisted, started keeping to themselves, whispering, watching. Then it was my first officer, Arven. He filed a formal report, accusing them of unquestionable loyalty and likely sympathies with enemy narratives. He never used the word exile. Too dangerous to say out loud. But I knew what he meant. I called him to my quarters. You want to court-martial them over a suspicion? I asked. Arven stood stiff, hands clasped behind his back. They don't belong here, sir. They're a liability. If we come under fire, I can't guarantee they'll shoot at one of their own." "They're not his people," I said, my tone low. Arvin didn't flinch. "With respect, sir, neither are we." He didn't wait to be dismissed. A day later, Ryle vanished, just gone. Bant swore he saw him walk into the lower maintenance deck after shift. No alarms, no incident reports, just silence. We checked the logs, wiped clean. I went down there myself, walked the catwalks, looked into the vents, found nothing. But when I returned to my cabin, something was waiting on my bed. Not a threat, not a bomb, a data chip, no markings. I slid it into the console. Just one file, a voice recording. My voice. From the shuttle. "You're not just killing soldiers, you're killing hope." The conversation with the exile. The one that should have been private, the entire thing. Someone had recorded it from the exile's end. Clean. Clear. With my face shown through internal ship cams I didn't know were active. And worse? There was Dominion watermarking on the file's compression signature. They were watching me too. I didn't sleep that night. Didn't speak. Just stared at the screen. Watching myself talk to the most wanted man in the galaxy. Not arrest him, not threaten him, just talk like he was still human. Because he was. And maybe I still was too. The next day, I got the summons. Encrypted. One-time ping, no Dominion seal, just a location. Relay beacon 17X, Dock 03. Come alone. I knew that code. It was from him. I made the mistake of telling someone. My tech chief, Carvin. Loyal, smart. One of the few I trusted. He said he'd wipe the logs, said he'd cover my absence. But someone else had been listening. The ambush hit me the second I boarded the shuttle. 3 armed soldiers, not standard issue. Black ops armor. No markings. They didn't speak. Just knocked me to the ground, zip-tied my hands, and shoved a bag over my head. The last thing I heard was my own heartbeat pounding like war drums. When I came to, I wasn't on the Erasure anymore. I was in a metal chair, arms bound, a spotlight overhead. Cold air. Smell of recycled steel and stale blood. Then the voice came. Not the exile. This one was colder, calculated. Dominion intelligence. "You spoke to him," the man said. "You didn't shoot. You sympathized." I didn't answer. He continued, slower this time. "You are not being charged. Yet. But the Dominion has a situation. One we believe you can still help fix." I finally spoke. "And if I refuse?" He laughed softly. "Then you'll be the next myth the exile adds to his legend." They offered me a deal. Use the trust I'd built with the exile. Use the familiarity. Draw him out. Get close. And then deliver a payload. Something new. Something final. A micro-singularity core. Looks like a power cell. When triggered, it doesn't explode. It collapses. Everything in a 500-meter radius pulled into a single point of infinite mass. Not even light escapes. They called it Project Hollow Sun. A weapon made for one man. For one ship. They handed me the cell. Black. Small. Cold. I stared at it for a long time. Then I took it. Back on the Erasure, I told no one, not even Carvin. The signal from the exile came again 2 days later. Same location, same shuttle dock. And this time? I didn't hesitate. He was waiting. Standing on the dark platform like before. The ship behind him humming low like a sleeping predator. His eyes landed on me, and then drifted down to the small case in my hand. He said nothing. I opened it, let him see the singularity core. I watched his eyes. No fear, no shock, just understanding. "You came to end it," he said. I nodded. "No traps, no speech, I do this clean." He smiled faintly. "No, you don't. A beat of silence. You came because you needed to know. Know what? I asked, throat dry. If you still believe in anything at all. He turned and walked into the ship. And I followed. Payload in my pocket, and a war raging in my chest. The first thing that hit me when I stepped aboard wasn't the silence. It was the weight. Not gravity, memory. It clung to the walls, heavy in the air, like the ship wasn't just made from alloy and circuits, but from every scream, every broken promise, every ash-covered ruin Earth left behind. He walked ahead of me without looking back. No weapons, no guards. He didn't need them. I followed, my hand brushing the small case hidden beneath my coat. The hollow sun core hummed faintly, deadly and patient. The Dominion's answer to the problem they'd created. We passed corridors lined with old flags, burnt, torn, faded. One bore the emblem of Earth before the fall. Another I recognized from the lost Titan colonies. Another, charred and bloodied, was from Jakarta Defense Command. His daughter had died under that flag. We stopped at a chamber that opened like a wound, its walls flickering with dim light, data streams pulsing like veins. This is the heart of the exile, he said, finally turning to face me. I looked around. It doesn't feel like a ship. It feels like a coffin, he interrupted. I nodded. He smirked, but it was hollow. Good. That means it's working. We sat. Not across from each other like enemies, but side by side, staring at a screen that showed the void. The Dominion's afraid of you, I said. They should be. I reached into my coat slowly. His eyes shifted. Not fear, just readiness. I pulled out the core, set it on the table between us. His face didn't change, not one line. I could end this now, I said. I know, he said. A beat. Silence. He didn't flinch, didn't move. That scared me more than anything. You're not even going to try and stop me? He looked at the core like it was a dead insect. You've seen what they've done. You know what they've buried. I'm not the one who needs convincing. I stared at the thing. That little box, 1 press, 1 second, both of us gone. Him, me, his ship, the legend, erased, no martyr, no story, just silence. So why couldn't I press it? He stood, walked over to a panel and tapped something. The walls lit up, not with data, with faces. Thousands of them. Men, women, children, all human. Some with Dominion tags, some with rebel colors, some in civilian clothes, others in suits scorched black with soot and blood. These are the dead, he said softly, all gathered from Dominion records, most listed as unknown casualties, some marked as traitors, a few were just in the way. I stared at them, and then I saw one I recognized. A little girl, big brown eyes, missing her front tooth. She was on the Varkesh. Her father worked sanitation. She used to sneak onto the viewing deck and leave sticky fingerprints on the glass. She wasn't supposed to be on the manifest during combat ops. But I remembered. She was. Her name was Talia, he said. She liked drawing stars. I couldn't look at him. I told them not to target civilian support ships, I whispered. I filed a protest. It was denied. He nodded slowly. You filed, and they buried it. I stood up, pacing. You think I don't know what the Dominion is? I hissed. You think I like being their pawn? I've watched friends die for nothing. I've carried body bags that didn't have names. I know the blood on our hands. Then why do you still wear the uniform? He asked. The question hit harder than any weapon ever could. Because I didn't have an answer. Maybe it was survival. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was because I didn't know how to stop. He tapped the panel again. This time it showed Dominion High Command. Not the propaganda feeds. The real ones. The private sessions. The unfiltered discussions. Classified footage of purges, interrogations, extermination protocols. Operation Glass Rain, Project Erasure, real-time commands given by cold voices in polished rooms. My name came up in one feed. Use him while he's useful. Dispose if he hesitates. Another voice. The exile is more valuable dead, but the martyr effect is a factor. Best to discredit him first. Frame the human colonies. Trigger panic. My stomach twisted. They weren't just trying to kill him. They were trying to use me to start a war within the human population. They wanted the colonies to fear the exile, to turn on each other, divide, distract, destroy, standard Dominion doctrine. And I was the tool. He watched my face as I processed it all. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. My hands shook. I walked over to the table, looked at the core again. I lifted it and dropped it on the floor, stepped on it. The casing cracked, sparks fizzed, and it died with a soft hiss. He exhaled. Not relief, just quiet understanding. I'm not your ally, I said, but I won't be their weapon. He nodded. That's enough. I stayed for hours. He showed me more. What the Dominion had done, what they were planning. Not just to humans, but to anyone who dared remember where they came from. Anyone who carried a memory that didn't serve their system. He wasn't building an army. He was building a record, a living archive. Because the greatest threat to tyranny isn't force, it's truth. When I finally returned to the Erasure, Arvin was waiting. He looked at me, looked at the empty case. You disarmed it? He said, trying to stay calm. I didn't answer. You had the shot. You had him. I stared him down. Get off my ship. His face turned white. I said get off. He hesitated, then stormed past me. I didn't stop him, let him run, let him report. It didn't matter anymore, because the exile had already won, not by destroying the Dominion's ships, but by making their own soldiers question why they followed orders. The next week, the Erasure defected. Quietly. No alarms, no broadcasts. We vanished into untracked space. I lost half my crew in the process. Some jumped ship. Others tried to mutiny. One tried to kill me in my sleep. But the ones who stayed? They understood. We weren't joining the exile. We weren't following him. We were becoming what the Dominion feared most. Free. When a Dominion warfleet wants to erase you, they don't fire missiles or drop nukes. They rewrite you. They scrub you from archives, delete your birth records, override security feeds. The face you shave in the mirror every morning becomes a classified artifact. Then they paint a new one. You're no longer commander. You're terrorist. You're traitor. You're a walking virus of disobedience infecting the carefully engineered order they spent centuries maintaining. The day after I defected with the Erasure, the Dominion broadcast my execution. Footage showed me weeping like a coward, then screaming as a plasma blade carved through my throat. A digital puppet, a generated farce. But it worked. Every Dominion planet, every Outer Rim news stream, there I was, dead and disgraced. And behind the falsified footage came the decree. Any harboring of former Officer Radek, any support, communication, or concealment will be treated as collusion with an enemy of the Dominion, punishable by orbital sterilization. Orbital sterilization. That wasn't a threat. That was a promise. I didn't care what they said about me. I'd made peace with being hated. But then they came for my brother. Kale wasn't military. He wasn't political. He ran a repair dock on Claris 9. Quiet, simple, out of the way. He had a wife, 2 daughters. Never fired a gun in his life. Didn't matter. They burned the dock. No trial, no charges, no announcement. Just a Dominion destroyer drifting through the atmosphere, dropping a single high-yield kinetic rod. No explosion. Just obliteration. I watched it on a delayed feed sent from a sympathizer. The message was clear. We don't need to kill you, Radek. We'll kill everything that ever loved you. I didn't speak for 3 days, didn't leave my cabin, didn't eat. The crew ran silent. They knew something had snapped in me, knew better than to press. But on the fourth day, I called a meeting. Not just officers, everyone. No rank, no protocol. I stood in front of them and told them everything. What the Dominion did, what I let them do, why we were here, why we were never going back. When I finished, I waited. Not for applause, just for a reaction. They gave me silence. Then one man stood, a mechanic named Drool, Dominion-born, raised in a loyalist sector, once proud of the uniform he wore. He looked at me, eyes hollow, and said, "What now?" What now? Good question. The exile didn't want an army, but he had one now. Not by design, by consequence. Every planet the Dominion scorched, every person they erased, every child they orphaned, it added fuel to the fire. The Erasure wasn't the only defection. More came. A recon frigate from the Nax Belt, a stolen cargo hauler from Kenzar Prime, an entire outpost on the Darren moons mutinied and took their orbital gun array with them. They weren't coordinated. They weren't uniform. But they all had one thing in common. They were done being afraid. And the exile. He stopped being a ghost. He became a symbol. But the Dominion had symbols of their own. They deployed something called Protocol Genesis. We didn't know what it was at first. Not until the screams came. It started on Varnus 2, a rebel safe zone. Families, scientists, refugees. The distress call was short. They're not soldiers, not ships. They look like us, but they're not. Then static. We arrived 6 hours later and found nothing. No bodies, no debris, no trace, just residue, burned out electronics, melted steel, and strange rhythmic scratches along the inner walls of the remaining shelters, like someone had clawed their way out. Or in. Then it hit us. The Dominion didn't send ships. They sent copies. Synthetic life forms designed to mimic human soldiers, not just in look, but in behavior, memory, personality. They were perfect infiltrators. You'd sleep next to one for weeks before realizing the real version died a month ago. They didn't bleed, they didn't tire, they didn't break. But the worst part? They remembered being human. The Dominion had scraped the memories of their captured rebels, their deserters, their dead, and uploaded them into these monstrosities. They were more than weapons. They were ghosts reprogrammed into killers. We captured one on Rygos Station. It looked like a man I'd served with on the Varkesh. Juno. Same smile, same voice, even smelled like the cheap cologne he used to steal from supply cabinets. Until we opened its chest and found no heart. Just a cluster of glowing wires and synthetic nerves. It begged for its life as we cut it open. Tears, real ones. Then it laughed as it died. "Thank you," it whispered. "Now I don't have to remember anymore." The crew fractured again. Trust broke. Friends accused friends. People started isolating. Everyone feared the person next to them. I was losing them, and the exile knew it. He called me again. Not a whisper, not a riddle, just direct comms. "Protocol Genesis is fear incarnate," he said. "They've made monsters out of memories." "They're winning," I said quietly. "I don't know who to trust anymore." "That's the point," he said. "The Dominion doesn't need to kill you. They just have to make you afraid of each other." I clenched my fists. "How do I stop it?" "You don't," he said. "You survive it, and you tell the truth." I broadcasted everything. Footage of Protocol Genesis, Dominion documents, the fake execution, the attack on my brother's dock, the infiltration files, the open surgical logs from the synthetic bodies. I didn't use encryption. I wanted everyone to see. Dominion systems tried to block it, filter it, flag it as fake. Didn't matter. It went viral anyway. One spark, one flame, and the entire sky caught fire. People revolted, not in waves, not in mass protests, in shards. One man shot his commanding officer on a station near Laxon. Another detonated a Dominion fuel depot. A woman released Dominion AI slaves from their root protocols, freeing hundreds of factory units. It was chaos. But chaos with a purpose. The Dominion struck harder. They accelerated Genesis deployments. Whole moons turned into test grounds. One colony, Arvanos 4, was declared irreversibly compromised and cleansed by solar beam. 18 million gone. To them, it was logistics, a ratio, acceptable loss. To us, it was personal. So I did the one thing I swore I never would. I called a meeting of the fractured ships, the rebel fleet, the deserters, the half-broken, half-crazed survivors. And I told them, we fight, not just run, not just hide, fight. The exile arrived last. He didn't bring a fleet, just his ship. And silence. But when he stood beside me on that cracked war table, staring at the faces of the ragged captains and wounded crewmen, no one questioned who we followed. He looked at me once and said, "Are you ready to burn the sky?" I nodded. "Then let's make them remember what it means to be human." They told stories about Earth once, before it was burned, before it became just a cautionary tale buried in Dominion textbooks. They used to say Earth was loud, chaotic, violent, but beautiful. Not because it was perfect, but because it remembered everything. That was the last thought in my mind as I stood aboard the Arasher, looking out at the Dominion's last stronghold, Echelon Prime. A star fortress the size of a moon, armored with plates mined from collapsed neutron stars, powered by a quantum core that could feed a planetary defense grid for a century. Surrounded by 3 defensive rings, 12 dreadnoughts, and a command fleet of over 200 ships. The center of Dominion power. The place where every purge was ordered, where every history was rewritten. The place where Earth was sentenced to die. And we were going to burn it to the ground. Our fleet wasn't impressive by any military standard. 14 ships total. Most were patched together with stolen parts and prayer. The Arasher was the only one fully combat-ready. The Exile's ship, the Phantom, as the legends called it now, hovered at our core, silent as death. But what we lacked in numbers, we made up for in desperation. This wasn't about victory. This was about ending the lie. We knew they saw us coming. That was the plan. No stealth, no flanking maneuvers, just a straight-line charge into the heart of their darkness. They launched their interceptors before we breached the outer rings. We met them head-on. I don't remember every moment of that battle. It all blurred together. Explosions, screams, alarms. We lost 3 ships before we reached the first defensive ring. I watched one freighter, the Seraph's Cry, crash itself into a Dominion destroyer, tearing it open from the inside with a core detonation. No escape pods. Just fire. Another, the Vesperfang, took 27 direct hits before ramming a cruiser, welding itself to the hull, and venting every deck into space. Desperation, courage, madness. But it worked. We broke through. The Arasher was bleeding. Systems flickering, hull torn in places but still fighting. My crew, those who hadn't defected, died or lost their minds, fought like animals. Every missile we had, every round, every drop of plasma, we spent it. And still it wasn't enough. They kept coming. That's when he moved. The Exile. The Phantom peeled off from our formation and dove straight into the second ring. Alone. No support. No plan. Just rage. We watched him move through the enemy fleet like a ghost through smoke. One by one, the Dominion ships died. Not with flashy explosions, but with precision. Aimed at command decks, reactors, life support. Each kill was intimate, surgical. Like he wasn't destroying ships. Like he was cutting out tumors. Radek, his voice crackled over the private channel. He never used rank anymore. It's time. I knew what he meant. The signal beacon. The archive. We'd built it over months. A data package containing everything. The Dominion war crimes, the Genesis files, the orders to burn Earth, the execution footage fakes, every classified report they'd buried under encryption, all set to broadcast, every system, every common, every Dominion channel, a single blinding truth bomb. But it could only be transmitted from inside the Echelon Prime core. Suicide mission, and it had to be done manually. "I'll go," I said. But he was already gone. The Phantom breached the third ring alone. No cloak, no tricks. He just forced his way in. They threw everything at him, mines, automated drones, kinetic rods. He didn't stop. The last comm we got from him was 3 words. "Get them watching." I understood. We turned every signal toward Echelon Prime, every Dominion screen, every outpost, every slave colony, every fortified broadcast line, all eyes on the myth. The Phantom slammed into the fortress core like a black comet. And then, silence. No explosion, no debris, just darkness. We waited. 5 seconds. 10. Then light. A burst transmission erupted across the system. The truth, all of it, pushed into every screen, every implant, every Dominion database. Files they said didn't exist. Orders they said were never given. Screams they said were lies. All of it. Undeniable. Unfiltered. And one final message burned into the transmission's end. "I was the ghost you made. I was the silence you fed. I was the man who remembered when no one else would. And now, so will you." The exile. The Dominion didn't fall that day. Empires don't shatter in an instant. But they cracked. Every sector broke into chaos. High command went dark. Entire fleets mutinied. Officers defected. Colonies declared independence overnight. And the name exile? It became something sacred. Not just a man, but a reminder. We never found his body. No wreckage. No trace. Some say he died in that transmission, burned up inside the core. Others say he slipped into another system, another war, another fight. Some think he was never real to begin with. A myth born of fire. A lie that became truth. I know better. I saw him. I heard his voice. I looked into his eyes and saw the rage of 1,000 worlds burning inside a man with nothing left. He was real. And he made me real too. The Arasher became a relic. We retired it in orbit above one of the freed colonies. The crew scattered. Some became teachers, others revolutionaries. A few died quietly. Me? I kept moving. Not as a commander, not as a soldier, but as a witness. I carry a single file chip with me now, the one we broadcasted. Everywhere I go, I find someone young, someone lost, someone broken, and I give it to them, not to start wars, but to remember, because memory is power, and forgetting is how they win. They said the human ship didn't exist. They said he was a ghost, a glitch, a lie. But the truth? He was the most human thing left in the galaxy. And the last words he ever spoke to me still echo in my head. They burned our world. So we became the fire.